Welcome to the Zinnov podcast. You're listening to our Business Resilience series, where we bring to you conversations between eminent industry stalwarts and thought leaders from across the globe as they discuss their insights on overcoming challenges and the mindset that help them navigate the journey of crisis, resilience, and growth.
Welcome to Women in the Mirror, a podcast where we explore the journeys of remarkable women leaders. Coco Chanel once said, "My life didn't please me, so I created my life." A sentiment that deeply resonates with women in leadership that I've had the chance to interact with. The fact is, women do face countless obstacles, be it shattering glass ceilings and even battling gender biases. Hi everyone, I'm Nitika Goel, the CMO of Zinnov, and in this series, we'll dive into the hard-won wisdom of accomplished women. Join me in these really interesting conversations as we navigate the inspiring stories of these women who balance work, family, and more importantly, personal ambitions. Tune in and be inspired by their resilience and, of course, strength. In this edition, we zoom in on the fiercely competitive retail realm, and I'm thrilled to welcome three exceptional leaders: Jennifer Goschke from 7-Eleven, Prashanti Bodugum from Walmart, and Monica Pirgal from Neiman Marcus. From luxury brands to big box behemoths to convenience store empires, these trailblazers are transforming the entire customer value chain. The pivotal make or break moments in their careers, the punishing self-doubts they conquered, and of course, the work-life tightropes they balanced. First up, we have Monica, Managing Director and Site Head at the Neiman Marcus Group India Center. With a 20-year-long career, Monica brings unparalleled expertise from her leadership roles across major GCCs like Lowe's and Goldman Sachs, as well as her own extensive experience in both consulting and as a lawyer in the corporate sector. Phew, that's a lot of careers and a lot of switches. Monica was a lawyer, believe it or not, but she's also a dedicated mentor and a passionate advocate of safe and inclusive workspaces. Maybe that's her legal brain talking about what needs to get done. So get ready as we dive into Monica's career-defining moments, facts of how she made her switch, her relentless drive, and what it takes to build a strong support system along the way.
I wouldn't want to take the credit that everything I have done has landed me here. I have been extremely lucky. I have had great mentors and supporters in the industry who identified my talent and offered me these roles that I could be. So the way I landed was when I was in my previous role as a general counsel at Lowe's. I started doing a lot of other things, which is a very typical me. I don't stick to my job. People may hate me for it, but I really don't mind. So I'll get into a bit of HR, I'll get into finance, how is sourcing doing their sourcing and stuff like that. And I realized that I really enjoyed doing that. I started having a flair for doing it well. And when the opportunity came up at Neiman Marcus, when one of my known colleagues, ex-colleagues was at Neiman, and she said, "Do you want to take up this role? Because I have seen you over the past 7-8 years and the way you've evolved. I think you'll be a good fit." So there were some moments of self-doubt, I would say, but you'll always have angels that are sent in the form of your ex-colleagues or friends. And she said, "Just take it on. I'm there to help you." And I took it on, and I'm telling you, I have no regrets doing that. It's been 2 years at Neiman, and I wouldn't have had it any other way. And I feel like the opportunity that I have got, if anybody else would get it, I would be the first one to mentor them, support them, and tell them that, "Go girl, you can do it like I have."
I love the thing of Go Girl. Monica brought up fascinating perspectives on the idea of a portfolio career, being open to changes and pivots rather than climbing some preconceived corporate ladder. It really makes one rethink the obsession with stability, doesn't it? Which brings me to our next guest, Jennifer, the dynamic VP and country leader at the 7-Eleven Global Solution Center in India. Jennifer epitomizes the ability to push past limitations and continually adapt. With her army background, her career path has basically been one of constant reboot. Let's hear it from Jennifer.
First of all, thank you for having me. And yeah, my dad was military, and so my childhood was spent moving around a lot because every 3 years he would get sent somewhere else. And I think if you grow up in that type of life, you can respond in a couple different ways. One, you can be upset that your life is being disrupted every 3 years, or you can view it as an adventure, which I did. And every 3 years, you're getting to learn a new city and make new friends and find new restaurants where you can go eat and find out what cool thing there is to do in that place. And so I think because I had that upbringing, it made me a very resilient, independent woman. My experiences here at
For Jennifer, it's clear that embracing change head-on at every turn is what ultimately molded her into a powerhouse that she is today. Those perpetual reboots bred a mindset of flexibility and resilience. Similarly, our next guest, Prashanti, Vice President Engineering at Walmart Global Tech, has navigated her own sort of portfolio career. Starting in e-commerce, then pivoting to healthcare before finding her way back to her current retail tech roles. Talk about spanning the entire gamut. It was fascinating to learn how Prashanti approached these industry shifts. More interestingly, she has been building a dynamic career while also being present as a mother and spouse. Not an easy feat, I assure you. But for anyone juggling multiple identities and responsibilities, the question we need to ask is, how did she find the balance between the two?
I started my career about 25 plus years ago as a developer in an e-commerce environment. I'm telling you that because, I'll wrap it up with that, but it's a full circle. So I was super excited because it was during the .com time and e-commerce was like a very in thing, and I started there. Journey took about multiple different directions, and after being in US for about 10 years, we decided to come back to India. In between, I did an expat role in Bangalore, so I was super excited about the environment that was just coming up in Bangalore at that time. But the rule at home was you need to come back to Hyderabad, not Bangalore. That was a family decision, so I went into financial services, something to do with solving business problems leveraging IT. So that was my first pivoting from what I was doing. The second happened when I was about 10 years in GE, which was my first career, and I was so emotionally attached to it. And then GE in India, when I happened to Jekis at the time, happened to get divested into Jetpact. So, I'm no longer with GE, so I might as well go explore the world. So I did that. That's when I moved into financial services, by the way, because my last job with GE was in the financial services space. I did that for almost a decade. And then I was almost on my way to Brazil because we were setting up something in Brazil at that time. My visa got delayed, coincidentally, and I couldn't go on time. Anyway, so healthcare invited me, and I said, okay, fine, why not? 7 years into healthcare, and I was thinking, what next for me? Am I going to be in India or am I going to go back to the parent? And my choice was to stay back in India, personal choice again. And that's when Walmart happened. But all in all, when I look at it, financial services to healthcare to retail, one thing that kind of stayed back with me is, what business problem are you trying to solve? Customer delight. It's like customer is at the front and center of everything that you do. So I'm so glad that I'm part of that journey. Doesn't matter which industry I belong to.
Prashanti's career choices makes it clear that serendipity and tough choices are key in anybody's career. Like the decision to stay rooted in India for her is a choice that eventually opened the doors in her role at Walmart. But throughout the twists and turns, one thing remained constant: her true North Star of delivering exceptional customer experiences that allowed her to deftly navigate new sectors as well as new challenges. Pivoting back to Jen, who has her own inspiring perspectives on navigating the unknown.
I think there's a thin line between confidence and arrogance, and some people flirt with it. But when you come into a situation like this, you have to be vulnerable. You can't fake it, right? I can't fake knowing the culture and the food and the norms here because I've never experienced it. So you have to be vulnerable and say, I don't know the answers, and I'm going to lean on others to find out. If I think about some of the keys to success, and I look back over a career of transitions, it's not because I went into every situation confident. It's because I went into every situation saying, I am curious and I want to learn and grow. And that is what helps you be successful.
Jen's journey and her choices have led her to a powerful realization. The realization that accepting what you know and what you don't know is both as crucial for growth. Asking for help isn't a sign of weakness. It truly is a mark of strength. Prashanti has had first-hand experience with the transformative power of seeking guidance. Let's hear what she has to say.
I think one thing that I definitely can talk about is I've always been very self-aware. I think more than what was required, by the way, sometimes.
I am the same.
So it always made me look back and say, hey, is this the right thing happening to me? And the best part was I always had a sounding board. So I have to say that I was privileged or blessed to have a very solid ecosystem around me, and I could trust to have these sessions, just speaking my mind. And it was amazing the kind of perspectives that you got, and it kept me thinking, why am I thinking in this direction only? And 90% of them were male colleagues, and their responses were like so different to mine. And I kept thinking, wow, let me try this, right?
Instead of getting overwhelmed by the complexity of her roles, Prashanti built a trusted peer support ecosystem. This network allowed her to gain perspectives, enriching her leadership approach. Vincent van Gogh famously said, "Great things are done by a series of small things brought together." Those who embrace a growth mindset understand this philosophy deeply. They see challenges as opportunities to learn and grow. But does one possess a growth mindset innately, or can you cultivate it over time? Let's hear Jennifer and Monica's perspectives on this.
I've told this to people before. I don't like to make mistakes. In fact, I'm very much a perfectionist, and I'm battling with that every single day, whether you're talking about making my bed in the morning and making sure there's no wrinkles in it, or building an office. But I think you get to the point where you recognize that perfection it's noble, but it's not what's going to ensure success, right? And so as you're striving for that excellence, that perfection, you're learning and honing and shaping, right? And that is the piece that's really valuable, that you can apply so you're not making the same mistakes over and over again.
I would say that yes, it did not come naturally. I think as lawyers in our colleges or in our internships, we are just asked to say, put all the disclaimers and just say what they can and cannot do. You should not take the risk of giving wrong advice. So we are always tuned to think like that. But in my time where I was a general counsel in my previous organization, I had a great manager back in the US, and he kept mentoring me. So he started making me find business legal solutions, not just legal solutions. So I think just adding the business to the legal made me like a business person. This change in the mindset was there before I joined Neiman, because on day one I hit the ground running. So for me, being a business legal person was a training that started, I would say, 5 years before I took up this role.
A big part of growth is also having guidance. It's about having the right kind of brain to pick, the ear to listen, and also a gentle nudge in the right direction. But the truth is, no single mentor can be everything you need. That's why our savvy guest today recommends cultivating a diverse set of mentors.
I think we all get by with a little help from our friends. A lot of times you think, okay, I need a mentor to help me. How do I find a mentor? And the reality is, even if you had a mentor, that person cannot be all things to you. I think it's important to find several mentors, these people in your life, and it doesn't have to be someone older than you, someone more experienced than you. It can be reverse mentorship, right, where it's someone teaching you things who has less experience than you. And so I think what's important, whether you're thinking about your immediate boss, or maybe it's your mother, or maybe it's a friend, what is this person really good at? And I'm going to get them to teach it to me. And sometimes it's hard to find that thing. Sometimes you're learning what not to do. And those are lessons also.
Building this web of support, trust, and guidance is a muscle that must be exercised every day. And it's a lot of work because the self-actualized leader never stops being a student. But the question we have to ask when it comes to choosing mentors, does gender really matter?
Finding mentors, it's not that easy. And for me, it was like not just one mentor. I constantly look for strengths, especially people who I admire, who have been there, done that. I have been like seeking mentors even at this stage, though I'm a sighted now. But no, I wouldn't say gender is irrelevant because nature has made us differently, men and women. The biological changes that we go through or the life changes that we go through, whether we like it or not, at least from an India ecosystem standpoint, women are expected to do a little more than what men do at home. I wouldn't want to generalize, but I think that nuance of the challenges that we have as a women, I think those are some things that women can resonate and give you like real advice. But if it's general, professional, industry, I don't think the gender really matters.
Monica laid out some interesting points on the role gender plays in picking a mentor. Prashanti has had first-hand experience with the role gender plays when it comes to choosing mentors. Let's hear what she has to say.
You know, many young girls I meet, I mentor, the first question they come to me with is, hey, I do all this hard work, but I'm not getting recognized. I'm like, who did you talk to? Nobody. I expect my manager to know that I'm doing this. Great, you have expectations, but the reality is something else. Can you do it? Because this is what I did. So many a times my guidance has always been, my experience tells me this. Do you guys want to try it out? And I've seen women change. I'm glad that I can influence them, but it's all about how you really reorient yourself and rewire yourself.
So I've spoken to several women leaders about their career journeys, and there's one thing that comes up time and time again: the glass ceiling. It's that point where you feel like you've hit a wall, but not because you're not qualified, but because you're not a part of the boys' club. And let me tell you, it's frustrating, I know. But here's the thing, we can't just sit back and accept it, can we? We need to find ways to break through this and claim our seat at the table. So I was curious, what helped our leaders overcome it?
Young mothers ask me this question, but my answer is, there is no secret sauce there. I think the answer is very simple. If you are aspiring to be part of that club, you have to spend the time. It will not come easy, which means there's something at home you're compromising on, and that's okay. Don't have the guilt of it. Reset the expectations so that the family understands that those 3 hours are extremely important for you and guilt-free. You're not going there to just have fun, which is okay. You need to have fun
as well, right?
Yeah, but
you
you're
build
going there
relationships like
because
that.
you really need those relationships which will come to your rescue when you're at work and you're asking for help.
I think one of the best things that we can do for the women in our organizations is build their confidence, right? And what I tell women when they're in a meeting, and maybe it's all men, and they're like, gosh, do I deserve to be here? And I don't want to look stupid. You were invited to the meeting for a reason. You have a unique perspective that they don't have. This is not my opinion. Research has been done that companies that have diverse perspectives around the table are more successful.
Correct.
Our customer base is diverse. So how can we solution for a female customer if we don't have females in the business world supporting that customer and their needs? We want to hear what you have to say.
Friction is self-doubt. It's a new role, you're a woman, you are expected to deliver a certain thing. Will you be successful? But when I realized that I had many other women colleagues, women leaders in the fraternity who I could bank on, who I could go back and seek help from, I think slowly those friction kind of died down on its own.
So one of the little tricks that you can do is, so for example, let's say you and I are in a meeting and you know that I'm going to present and you know I'm a little nervous about it. When I make eye contact with you, you're going to give me a little smile, which says, Jen, you can do this, right? And I've actually done that. And that seems small, but it's huge in the moment.
Having support from fellow women can make a world of difference, especially when facing the glass ceiling. Here's another challenge that women face in their careers: taking feedback like it's personal. You may know how it goes. You pour your heart and soul into a project, and even though you know it's not personal, it still stings. So let's ask our speakers if they have tips on how they take and decouple themselves from the feedback.
I was upset in one of the situations where the business was not listening to the legal advice that I was giving. And I went back to my manager and I'm like, I think they just hate me for what I do. They just don't want to take my advice. He said, you're doing a great job. Because as a legal counsel, I am expecting you to resist what is not right. And if everyone starts liking you, then I will have my doubt whether you're doing your job well or not. And then I realized, look at it, the way he's looking at it is purely from my role. He's not looking at me as a person or my relationships with my stakeholder. And that was an aha moment for me.
You rightly said it. The narratives that go in our mind are very different to the narratives men go through. For me, yes. I wouldn't shy away from saying that younger me used to sit and cry about it. Very emotional, because you always measure performance as a report card and you can't see something less than an A. The mature me takes it, drink a glass of water and then brood over it for a day and then get back, because that's how life.
Is this something that only affects a select few women, or is it a more widespread issue?
I think women across all levels. There's actually it's the woman who started, I think, Girls Who Code. But she talks about how boys are raised to be brave and girls are raised to be perfect. I don't know if you've heard it.
Yes, I have.
It's amazing.
Yes.
But it talks about boys are told it's okay to fail. It's okay to fall off the jungle gym and skin your knee and you get back up. And girls are taught to be more pleasing and proper and don't take risks, right? I'm generalizing, of course, but I think it is more of an issue with women worrying about
How it looks, what
and 99% of the time it is not personal, and yet we assume that it is. So if something's happening, for example, let's say I sent my boss an email with a PowerPoint or an idea and they don't respond. I could think, gosh, this person hates the idea. And so you're thinking, this is about Jen Goschke. And the reality is, it's probably not.
Your boss is just too busy.
They trust me. I should just run with it. If they had any criticism, they would have called me, right? And we attach this negative connotation. And if you are going to have an emotional reaction to everything that's said to you, you're going to be exhausted.
Is it a function of nature or nurture? But the fact of the matter is, women struggle with building confidence. In many cases, it's not innate, but it is something that can be developed over time. Let's shift gears and talk about a topic that plagues a lot of women. Being a mother is a unique challenge that comes with its own set of responsibility, fears, and even guilt. A woman is usually pulled in a million different directions, trying to be everything to everyone, and it's a balancing act that can feel impossible at times. Prashanti has been there, and she has some incredible insights to share.
And I was very fortunate for the managers that I had in my career, all through in US, in India, that I always got that equitable environment. I think that was most important. The second is, I believed in building network and relationships with my peers, because that's the one which can really make you or break you. Your teams will always listen to you because we are still very hierarchical in our DNA, but your reality check is your peers.
That's a strong call to action to all the working mothers out there who are struggling to find the balance. You do not have to do this alone. The challenge is perhaps finding the people who you can lean on, those that become your support system. Maybe it's up to us as both listeners and women to be that support system. Maybe it's a collective responsibility for all of us to help them share the load.
There are phases in my life where I thought I was a superwoman, I can do it all. But then necessary interventions happened where I had to take some calls. I wouldn't say we had to take some calls where we said this is not going to work, right? If you want both, then you have to listen to the support system, be it my husband or in-laws, parents. So I'm glad I did. So I've been able to do that. There are times when I went out like middle of the week, which meant my kids' homework was not checked, but then I had a husband who could take a look at it, or I had a mom who could take a look at it and say, Mom, can you please make sure these guys do the homework so I'm not...
Ask for help.
Ask for help.
I wouldn't want to take 100% credit off, because it's practically impossible for you to juggle or be successful unless you have 50% of the support from the other side. So talking about my parents, talking about my in-laws, talking about my spouse, I mean, I've been extremely lucky to find him. Second, you have to invest in that relationship for them to understand the place you're coming from. So it's like a give and take, I would say. There are times where I have to drop work to just be with my daughter, and the other way around. Like today, I was supposed to go to my mom's house, but this was important. So I told my mom I have to do this, and I told my daughter that I'm going for this podcast, and she was very excited. She was actually telling me what to wear. So this does not come like, it's been years of understanding what her mom does, how it impacts her, our family. Is she proud of having me as a mom, being a VP of Neiman Marcus? I think that's something that you have to educate your child, constantly have conversations, because you also have to respect the place that they are coming from.
Prashanti and Monica have brought up an important point of bridging the gap between their personal experiences and what their family sees. It really is about open communication, so that the family can just understand their motivation, what makes them tick, why it's important, and the experiences that they're going through, both good and bad. Basically, they need to hop on for this roller coaster ride. All three of these women, Prashanti, Jennifer, and Monica, each paint a vivid picture of turning challenges into stepping stones. A true testament to how grit and opportunity mindsets can turn perceived weaknesses into powerful strengths. Rather than seeing biases as being the only woman in the room as obstacles, their journeys are a masterclass of taking ownership of your own lives and making the best out of every situation. All right, it's time for my favorite part, the rapid fire round. And of course, we're going to get candid and an insightful peek into the minds of these remarkable women. So let's get started. Jen, we have spoken about mentorship and role models. Who inspired you growing up?
My mom was an incredible role model for me. Such a hard worker, but also super creative, so talented. I'm not talented like she is, but She can sew, she can paint, she can fix a faucet, right?
Wow.
So and so I saw her doing all these things as I was growing up. And if you can see it, you can be it. And so she just was really a great person to look up to.
Monica, we know all about your dynamic portfolio career, but now we want to get to know you a little bit better. Tell us one fun fact about you that nobody knows.
So the fun fact is, people think of me as a boring lawyer who's just doing her work. But before I did my law, I did a lot of exciting stuff. I was on the show called Kaun Banega Crorepati, hosted by Amitabh Bachchan. I was in the hot seat sitting across him.
Lovely.
In a world where conformity often seems like the easiest path, Prashanti, you chose to stand out in a remarkable way, where you dress nicely, you own your Indian roots. But sometimes standing out in a crowd is hard. How do you do it?
Wow, great question. I lived in US for about 10 plus years before moving back to India. I was so bored with the colors that you would wear, black, blue, white, or whatsoever. But then when I came back to India, it was like so refreshing to see all the colors, and it made my day. So I think I fell in love with the colors. That's probably the easiest one. But there were 2-3 things that kind of made me pick my attire. One was, I was always in midst of many men. I probably was like one woman in a group of many men. Most times the conference rooms was just me, and I wanted to be very comfortable sitting there, and I felt the Indian dressing gave me that. Forget about the way you're dressed, but focus on the business.
I love it.
As we close this episode of the Woman in the Mirror series, I asked our guests to reflect and share the advice that they would give their younger selves, their current selves, and even their future selves down the line. You're not going to want to miss their responses.
I think there's a lot of wisdom that comes with time, right? If you had to reflect in the mirror that I was saying to the woman that you are today and look back 10 years ago, what would you tell yourself then?
Relationships are key. Very little can be accomplished by myself, almost nothing. And so taking the time to invest in those relationships, I think, is really important.
Managing aggressive expectations.
I think I should have started it much earlier in terms of networking, meeting with people more than just sitting at my desk, getting out of my comfort zone and having those conversations.
Got it. So be comfortable with being uncomfortable, especially when networking.
And what advice, with all the knowledge that you have, would you give yourself today?
Seize the moment.
I would say give yourself some grace.
Today, I would say you don't have to answer every question. You have to pick up your battles.
If you had to say, write one of those time capsules, put it in the sand, and something to yourself 10 years hence, what would it be?
I think I'm almost there. Take it with the flow and enjoy the world out there. It's beautiful.
I would be more assertive.
I would say spend more time with your family.
In a few minutes, Prashanti, Jennifer, and Monica shared insights on challenges women face every day at work and beyond. These are insights anchored on their truths. They drove home the importance of leading with authenticity rather than projecting some forced persona, how they have the right people in their corners, and that really is non-negotiable. But above all, they imparted the wisdom that self-doubt is not something to be crushed, but to be channeled for growth. Stay tuned for more episodes of Woman in the Mirror, where we continue to feature exceptional leaders who navigate these struggles and inspire us all, each day and every day. So until next time, I'm Nitika Goel, the CMO of Zinnov, and I hope all of you have learned to embrace the journey, lead authentically, and live life brave, bold, and of course, queen size.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Business Resilience Series. Stay tuned for more such interesting episodes. You can listen to our podcast on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast from. To know more about Zinnov, visit our website, www.zinnov.com, or drop us a note at info@zinnov.com. Follow us on Twitter @Zinnov for regular updates on our content. Thank you again for listening to the Business Resilience series of the Zinnov podcast.